All right, welcome back to Texas A&M Aggies Live, part of the Voice of College Football Network. I'm your host, Cameron Odyssey, joined by my co-host, as always, Kenan Torres. We are kind of in a weird spot right now because obviously the football season is over. Indiana, crowned national champion after beating Miami. We're kind of going into really deep in the basketball season. We're going to get a little talk about Buckyball and all the success they had in the upcoming schedule later in the show. But we are going to focus on football still today for a majority of the program. So basically everybody's done their way too early rankings. I think pretty much every publication, including ours at USA Today, put their top 25 out for the preseason, literally days after or even seconds after for some the national championship game. A&M, we talked about that I think last week a little bit. They're pretty much consensus number 8 overall, which is kind of interesting because we are entering this new era where A&M is receiving respect preseason under Mike Elko, because obviously year one, I think they were in like bottom 20, probably 23 or 22. I had to go back and look, but that made sense. Got a new coach, had a veteran team, and that's when Connor Wegman was at quarterback, and a lot of people thought, well, he's brought in enough talent from the portal. He's got veteran returning talent. Maybe they can be a competitor. Were for most of the season. Obviously, the injury Le'Veon Moss ended 8-5. Going into this year, kind of the same thing, right? They were, I think, 20. I think they were in the same area as like 20,
just around the same area.
Yeah, and obviously had a historic season starting at 11-0. Obviously ending the year 0-2 against Texas and Miami, but still making the college football playoff for the first time in program history. A lot of good things happen. A lot of positives to take away. You are losing a dozen plus players to the NFL draft, lost a lot of depth pieces to the portal, but gained 17 transfer additions. Plus you have the 26 signing class coming in, which does feature several players who could either contend for a couple starting spots, to be honest with you. It's going to be very interesting to see how those guys progress, but mostly depth positions there. Obviously, the big news was starting quarterback Marcel Reed returning for his second season as a full-time starter, and adding guys like Isaiah Horton at wide receiver, Anto Saka at edge, and 4 offensive linemen, all with starting experience in the SEC to fill out the trenches. So they did their work, and obviously nationally, people think that A&M is going to be a contender once again. They have a very tough schedule. It's going to be a little different compared to last year, especially ending the year going against Oklahoma and Texas in consecutive weeks, and playing some pretty tough road environments, including an early battle at LSU and at Missouri for the second consecutive year.
Second year in a row.
All that was telling me, he's like, what the heck is this? Why are they playing there again? I'm like, well, that's just, it's a 9-game schedule, is how it kind of works. But this will be the final year I think they do that consecutively. But either way, I'll just ask you this, because I do agree that 8 is a good number for them. I think that they have a lot to prove, a lot of new players. I do like that most of the Aggie fan base maybe, kind of sees that and wins, well, I wish we were kind of in like the bottom 15, 20. I think that's where we should be, because there's a lot to prove with these new guys coming in. But for me personally, I think that Holman Wiggins now taking over at OC, I don't think there's going to be a lot of difference in terms of the play calling. I think it might be a little better in some areas. It could be very different and cause some issues early in the year, but there's a lot of hope there. Obviously, Joey Lynch, we're going to get into this coaching staff a little bit, the new QB coach, very unknown for people. We can get into his background actually a little bit, because we actually haven't talked about that, which is interesting enough. We have a lot of other stuff to cover. But he does have a past relationship with Marcel Reed, very well liked in the program. And obviously bringing in guys like Elijah Robinson, a defensive line, to coach those guys up, who obviously was a mainstay in College Station for a long time, and is back after a short stint with Syracuse. So anyways, I'm going on a tangent here. Do you agree that number 8 overall is a pretty good landing spot for them?
I don't know, because it is super early going into the spring, and I really am not one to make a lot of decisions based off of the talent I saw from a team that current year. I'm always waiting to see what they are going to be able to put on the field the next year. So with all of these flying pieces around, and we won't have a spring portal this year, I mean, they could have some wild thing happen where spring ball is played and some person, files a sue against their own team. But right now, I think that a conservative 8 or 9. In that 8 to 10 range is where I think a lot of people are just saying, hey, they just missed out on the SEC championship this past year, but they still clinched a playoff spot with their record going 11-1. Now, they did lose to the eventual national champions or national championship runner-up in Miami 10-3, but there's still a lot to be like really, really like proud to have going in from year 2 of Mike Elko, year 2 into year 3. So with Marcel Reed coming back, adding someone like Isaiah Horton, who is very familiar with Marcel Reed to begin with. And I'm really happy about the DBs that they added as well, with Ricky Gibson and Tafiq Bayer being a part of this team now, where they just needed the valuable snaps that a lot of these teams are looking for now. I mean, we saw just this past weekend, there's a whole controversy going on with Clemson and Ole Miss because of a Cal linebacker that had already signed. But he has a lot of snaps under his belt already, and that's why he was so much in demand. What a lot of these coaches are looking for. So when A&M is going into this next season, I'm really thinking, can they make that jump from 8 to that top 5 spot, where in year 3, it's really hard to go and jump from an 11-1 season to looking better. And then people are saying, well, do they have a worse record? Do they have the same record? We don't know yet. And we would be fools to kind of predict their record going into next season right now.
Yeah.
But we got to know these positional matchups going into, and we'll talk about those positional matchups later on in the show. But I think when I look and see that the coaches that they added, you mentioned Elijah Robinson, who's very familiar with the program already, having been here for multiple seasons and been on the coaching staff with Mike Elko before. I think that familiarity with the players, the place, the system is what's going to tie it all together for this team. So you see a lot of the promotions from within with Joey Lynch, with Holman Wiggins, with Lyle Hemphill, who has already been here for a full season as an assistant coach, maybe not the full defensive coordinator, but an assistant coach. It's the familiarity with the program and the scheme fits. And that's really what it's all about with Mike Elko, is fit, scheme, and communication together. So it's a well-oiled machine is what he's aiming for. Maybe it happens this year where that well-oiled machine fits better than what happened this past season, going 11-1 in an SEC schedule. We'll see. But I think when we are talking about these coaches, I think the first one we can start off with is a big one, but Elijah Robinson replacing Sean Spencer as the defensive line coach. I think, do you have anything on your mind with him coming back, even with what we saw from him being a defensive coordinator at Syracuse, and then not necessarily demoted, but kind of being put in a co-defensive coordinator position with all the stuff going on, with him being in high demand from LSU, Nebraska, and Penn State and other places? Where do you see that, and where's your mind at with Elijah Robinson coming back?
Well, I think he left a little too early. I think some of these coaches, we've seen that actually with Joe Brady, who was just hired as Buffalo Bills head coach. He, heralded as the architect or co-architect, whatever you want to say, of the 2019 LSU offense that was so historic and probably never be even matched going forward. And he went to the NFL, was with the Carolina Panthers for a little bit. That didn't really work out. He was back in even a lower position, and then kind of made his bones with Buffalo, and they believed in him enough to make him the newest head coach. So sometimes it takes a while, even after you are a hot commodity, kind of like Elijah Robinson was, kind of treading water or helping the program tread water when Jimbo Fisher was fired, taking over as the interim head coach. And then ultimately there was a decision of, should we actually consider Robinson as a potential head coach going for the 2024 season and beyond? Obviously, they went out, hired Mike Elko. Robinson went on to take the defensive coordinator position at Syracuse. And again, it's very hard to recruit talents at Syracuse and also become a top defensive coordinator at a program that really isn't a football program to begin with. It's gotten better, but it's really kind of up and down. It's not really a consistent job, I would say, where you can really have a lot of success. But at the same time, sometimes it just doesn't work out at certain places. Has nothing to do with your coaching acumen. He is one of the best recruiters in the country, especially at D-line. Just builds great relationships with these kids. He's already proven that through the portal after they landed CJ Mills and Angelo McCollum, two of the top defensive linemen. Obviously, getting Anto Saka and Ryan Henderson. I guarantee he had a big hand in that as well. Just a great communicator, somebody that obviously is just coming to the program seamlessly. He's going to build a rapport with this current team, and he's going to pick up where he left off when he did leave the program after the 23 season. So I think he's the most significant external hire. There haven't been a ton of external hires. And I think the reason for that is Mike Elko just trusts this staff he has in place. I think a lot of people on surface kind of question Lyle Hemphill being elevated. But at the same time, if you look at where Lyle Hemphill was left or had left off at James Madison, this is one of the top defensive minds in football right now. He's a rising star in the coaching ranks. So why wouldn't you elevate him to defensive coordinator? He's on the same wavelength as you in defensive play calling. You guys have a very similar system. He's already considered one of the best secondary coaches out there, along with Mike Elko. So it was a great fit there. But I think Robinson overall is going to have a huge impact. And what better time than now? Because you've got a lot of new players in the defensive trenches that you need good coaching. You need guys who are going to, build some consistency in the spring, going into the summer and going into fall camp, because you can't have a ton of drop off there, because A&M has gone into every season with veteran defensive line depth. Now you have that through the portal, but again, it's a lot of new guys. DJ Hicks is really the only returning starter with experience in the system. But you do feel like these new additions are going to be more than good enough, and having Robinson coaching this group along with Tony Girardi, you can't really get better than that, in my opinion.
True. Well, which coach do you want to move on to next? I think that there was a whole lot of talk around. Well, I think we've covered Holman Wiggins enough being promoted.
We have. I mean, we can really touch on Holman Wiggins a little bit, and I think that I'd love to give you your opinion on this, because I think a lot of people that was the position, because I think that Lyle Hemphill, which I don't really think we need to get into that, because obviously we both agree he's been in this system, him and Elko on this, like I said, the same wavelength. I think he's going to be very good at this job, and he and Elko aren't going to have any problems. But unlike Jimbo Fisher, who when he hired an OC, it was basically, here, call my plays. That's not it now. It's basically Elko has nothing to do with the offense outside of mid-game coaching decisions and stuff like that, like any head coach. So there's a lot of pressure on Holman Wiggins, who has not been a play caller in his career. I have to look back, because if you look back at his time at Alabama, he served as assistant head coach for a couple of years and wide receiver coach for majority of his year in time in Tuscaloosa. So I don't know if he really had that job before. I have to look back. Maybe he did previously, but it's a big job. And especially for a team that you've got all this talent on offense, you've got a pretty deep running back room as well. You know what Elko is expecting. He wants a balanced offense. One of the reasons he went and got 4 SEC starting offensive linemen wasn't just because he knew that we were going to lose a ton of guys to the NFL draft, but we felt like we needed maybe a little better fits in the system, guys who are better run blockers overall, that could open up more holes for this running back room. They have a lot of belief in like KJ Edwards and Carson Baker even coming into the season as freshmen. So getting a guy who isn't going to stray too much away from what Colin Clem is doing, but like I've said 100 times here, add new wrinkles. He has a great history developing wide receivers. Getting a guy like Isaiah Horton in this program who has a bright NFL future, along with Mario Craver, obviously, who is a first-round pick in the making, who's just going to get a lot of buzz this summer because of his elite speed and separation. You can now move him around this offense to exploit matchups and just have Horton at the X or the Z to kind of take away that number one corner or the corner with the most size and kind of spread these guys out. So if he can do that and the run game just gets a little better and a little more consistent, it's a home run hire, because I do believe that the passing game will be fine. I don't know. I don't really understand the apathy towards the hire. A lot of people were very worried about it. I think they just wanted a big name but it's kind of like Florida taking Georgia Tech's OC, and they kind of thought, well, why can't we do that? That's a brand new system. That's a head coach who's just trying to put together a staff. So he has to get guys. It's similar to what Elko did before his first season, hiring Colin Klein. I remember there was an interview, and he said, I didn't really talk to Colin Klein that much. Like, I watched him. We had brief discussions. He told me what he wanted to do here, what he wanted to do with Marcel Reed, his plan, or Connor Wegman at that time, and how, we kind of felt about the offense. And I hired him. That's how it works. Like, people think they all like have these long dinners and they talk about philosophy. That doesn't always happen. Now, if you are a friend, or you've worked with certain guys in the past, we see that in the NFL. The Pittsburgh Steelers, for example, just hired Mike McCarthy. You hear a lot of the interviews he's having are guys he's friendly with, who he coached with in the past, he has a prior relationship with. That happens all the time. But I think that Mike Elko just trusts Holman Wiggins enough because he's been here for 2 seasons. He knows this system. He was co-offensive coordinator as well as wide receiver coach. And like I said, I do trust wide receiver coaches taking over offenses. I've seen that in the NFL work out. I think wide receiver now is such an important position that you have to develop these guys and make them those pristine route runners that can separate in coverage and help your quarterback out. And if your quarterback is accurate enough, they're going to get the ball. And Marcel Reed has already proven he can be that guy. He has to take another step as a pocket passer. But right now, I'm very high on the hire. I think that I don't think that's going to be problematic. I care more about the defense right now and these new guys coming in and how they're going to assimilate. But offensively, I just don't think the play calling can get really worse. I just don't see that, being that he did serve as the co-OC. So he's already got that philosophy down with what Colin Klein was doing. So that's mainly my opinion. I just don't, and we can talk about that later in the year as we get through spring ball and stuff. And maybe we see something. We're not going to see anything in the spring, but there will be more to discuss with these player progressions. But personally, I'm fine with it.
Agreed. I do want to preface that as we are doing this show, there has been no hire officially made known for A&M fans for the cornerbacks coach position that Jordan Peterson left to go to Kansas State to be their defensive coordinator. That hire has not been made official yet, even though we are anticipating that to be made known here soon. So moving on from that coach, I think that the one people are going to have a little bit more hesitancy on because they just don't know who the person is Joey Lynch. Yeah. And when we were coming into this past season, we were saying, what can Marcel Reed do to take that next step? Is it a bona fide QB coach? Is it someone who can help him set his feet? And Colin Klein was really that guy who helped him progress along the season as a passer and make those decisive measures for the offense and even call audibles for the team. But Joey Lynch joined A&M last season in January, and he was quickly promoted to quarterbacks coach now from a senior offensive analyst. I mean, he comes from like nearly 20 years of experience coaching, and he's been an FBS offensive coordinator for like 9 out of those 20 years. So he worked with the running backs as an offensive analyst. So he's been with Trooper Taylor for a little bit. He helped Le'Veon Moss. But a lot of where he made his headway was at Vanderbilt, which I believe he started out as the quarterbacks coach and then the offensive coordinator there. So they improved at Vandy. I have the stats here. They improved from 104th nationally in 2021 to 64th nationally in passing offense while he was there. And his quarterbacks that he coached there threw just 6 interceptions in 2022. So he was also an offensive coordinator at Colorado State and spent 11 years at Ball State as an offensive coordinator and was a Broyles Award nomination in 2019. So the bottom line there for people who aren't familiar with Joey Lynch is that he has the experience, which is what Mike Elko is looking for in his players. Why not his coach? Proven developer, especially at a school like Vanderbilt, who before the season was not as relevant as they are today. And now he's leading Marcel Reed and the quarterback room with Brady Hart, Helaman Kasuga, and all the other quarterbacks behind him as well. So early thoughts on the hire internally of Joey Lynch.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of funny. Sorry about that. I was in the middle of something. But Yeah, I think kind of looking at his, I actually watched Ball State a little bit. This was back when I was in high school when they had one of their better seasons under Pete Lembo, and they were one of the higher scoring teams in the country. Nobody really knew about Joey Lynch. I mean, that's the thing. He, again, when you are a Broyles Award nominee, that's a big deal. That means you pretty much know what you're doing at that time. You're kind of going with the trends. You're learning. You're becoming a better coach overall. Coaching at Vanderbilt back then was tough. Okay. You did not have the talent to develop. You were getting at best, maybe 3-star, maybe a 4-star here and there. Very, very guys who it took years for them to develop in the program. They just never had enough there to help assistant coaches land other gigs and develop them. We were talking about Indiana last week with Jackson, talking about how good that coaching staff was and how, when you look at the job that they've done, and you kind of compare it to some of the other programs in the past, and how, Kurt Cignetti, obviously he coached under Nick Saban, and you had a lot of guys like Steve Sarkisian, for example, who were also in that kind of that Saban coaching clinic, as I used to like to call it, where he kind of rehabilitates these guys and turns them into future head coaches. A lot of good coaches that just aren't known because they kind of get lost in the mess of what's college football and teams firing head coaches. And then these guys are kind of on the street looking for new opportunities all the time. I think that was kind of where Joey Lynch was. I mean, and credit to Mike Elko. He knew what he could bring to this team. He was serving as an assistant. I think it's kind of hard to, I guess, identify an external candidate when it comes to a quarterback that's been in a similar system for the last 2 years. He was thrown in as a starter midway through the 2024 season. He obviously earned the starting job going into 25, still kind of learning, getting better, giving him more weapons. But at the same time, you could tell that the mechanics still need work. The footwork still needs work. All these things need work, yet he still threw for 3,192 and 25 touchdowns. So he is taking the next step. And if you were going to do an external hire of I guess a big name, but I mean, really, it's a quarterback coach. I mean, who are you going to find that, I mean, I guess a downgraded OC that got fired and just needs a job, and it's a semi-big name that people know who's had a background developing quarterbacks? Sure. But at the same time, do you want that guy who really doesn't know anything about Marcel Reed and he's going to learn about him in the offseason, and then he's not going to know him well enough sometimes that it's not really going to help him develop? Or do you want to get a guy who's already in the program, who knows this guy all the way from when he recruited him from Nashville at Vanderbilt, and understands his play style, understands his skill set, and they already have a respect for each other, and his job is to coach him and get him better? I get the criticism because it's not a name they know. A lot of people do not like internal hires because they don't think you're getting better doing that. Which, again, I guess it's an opinion-based thing. I don't get that. I mean, it's like if you look at a corporate structure, are you going to elevate within? Or are you always going to bring in guys from other companies? I mean, is that smart strategy? I don't know. I'll be honest. My dad used to tell me about that stuff all the time, that some of the guys they brought in outside didn't work out, but the company culture and the guys they move up who already know the company and they do well at the job, they do better. So I don't know. It's all the same, right? But it's hard to gauge if he's going to be a great hire. But I can honestly say that if this is like a 1 to 2 year type of thing, that's just going to maybe help. If he has success here and Marcel Reed has a Heisman level season next year, you think that's not going to help his job prospects in the
Most
future?
likely it would.
Exactly. So it's a bonus for him. It's a bonus for Reed because they already know each other. Reed is a smart kid. He knows what he has to work on. I mean, it's hard to even talk about it sometimes because we can look at the failures against Texas. We can look at the failures against Miami. We can also look at the wind and how that affected both teams and how it was kind of one of the dumbest, slowest games of the year, culminating in basically bad run defense and an interception that was based on an ill-time throw. Like, I can't define Marcel Reed by those plays in that game and the Texas game, which I'm going to be honest, sometimes until A&M beats Texas on the field, Joe Montana could have been back there and probably threw 2 interceptions. Maybe it's voodoo. We don't know. I have no idea. But he did take another step, and I think that making this change and having a guy that he is at least on the same same floor with in terms of what they need to fix together, I think it will work out personally. That's just my opinion. I'm not saying like I know that's what's going to happen here. It could be a failure. Who the hell knows? But at the same time, it's just hard to talk about external hires being the better choice. Do you want someone to come in here and just trash Marcel Reed and say, you're not a good quarterback, but I can turn you into one? Do you think that's going to help him? Because I think sometimes it's what people think should happen, which I don't understand that. You got to give this kid confidence, and you got to tell him, look, you had a dynamite season. You kicked butt most of the year, but you have some problems that we need to iron out, and here's how we can do it. And that's coaching. So if he can do that, it's a great hire.
Yeah. I think that's more the wait and see approach a lot of people should be having right now, instead of just saying, I don't know. Right. But I mean, we should be able to see a little bit of the fruits of their labor here out of spring ball here shortly. But I think one of the other ones that people aren't as familiar with, just because Holman Wiggins was the star type of wide receiver developer from year 1 to year 2, was John Perry. And he was elevated from assistant wide receiver coach to the full-on wide receivers coach. So he's worked like directly under Holman Wiggins for the past 2 years. So I believe the actual number is 20 years ago, John Perry actually worked with Mike Elko at Hofstra in 2005, 2006.
Yeah, I'm working. Well, he was there. So he was offensive coordinator at Hofstra in 2006. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But I mean, Perry has familiarity already with this wide receiver room. And that's really more of the plus that I'm looking for with an internal hire, is already having that familiarity, especially in teaching moments with these guys. So you saw how good Casey Concepcion, Mario Craver were, even Ashton Bethel Roman was, who I think was a direct, actual coaching thing from Holman Wiggins, Colin Klein, and by proxy, John Perry as well. So who knows exactly what was said from each of their coach to have something click in these guys' heads. But John Perry, he's been in this business for a long time. So almost 30 years of experience in coaching. I mean, he was an analyst at Rutgers. He was a quarterbacks coach and offensive coordinator at Sam Houston a couple of years ago. But the main thing I wanted to get to is that he was the tight ends coach and wide receivers coach down with the Houston Texans under Bill O'Brien. So he has worked with guys like DeAndre Hopkins. He's worked with another one of the names I've heard in recent days is OJ Howard. If you remember, you remember that name. So a lot of those like mid 20 teens wide receivers you saw in the Texans were actually coached by John Perry as well. So he has a long resume. NFL experience is always good when it comes to position coaches, because they have, seen it before, which is why I think I'm high on on Ohio State getting Arthur Smith for offensive coordinator. Like, I'm pretty high on that just because he has experience with the play calling a lot. But that's neither here nor there. John Perry is a guy that I think can have a very positive impact on this wide receiver room, especially with the talent that they have now compared to years past.
Yeah, having a guy who's 56 years old, like you said, been doing this for 20 plus years, I think that's as seamless transition as you get. You've been in the NFL, you've seen some of the play calls there, you kind of understand the structure of how to make some of these star wide receivers better. But also, I agree with you there. How you judge a wide receiver coach is how he makes the other guys better. How those number 2s, those number 3s, those number 4s, the Ashton Bethel Romans of the world, helping them develop. So having that happen, I think that was an easy. I don't really have a lot to say about that. I don't think anybody should be angry about that one, because you've got Holman Wiggins, who was the wide receiver coach, who obviously trusts Perry enough. Mike Elko's the same way. They're going to be on the same in the same room, basically talking about these guys, kind of where to put them. I bet they're having a fun time right now, kind of moving guys around because Isaiah Horton is now in this program. I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun coaching job.
Isaiah Horton in the slot,
Oh yeah. I mean, you could do anything at this point. So because you just needed the size, and you've got elite athleticism. And I think Bethel Roman, for example, is going to be even more of a breakout player because he got his last year. You know, he had some big games. He had some impactful catches. Hell, he had some impactful catches against Miami in that final drive to tie the game. So he's a player that I'm very excited about. And I just think having that voice in the room is going to help them. I think, and then having a guy in his 50s who's been around football at every level for a very long time, that's great. I mean, those guys love that. Having almost like a father figure in there, someone who just knows what they're talking about. You can trust them. That's great because even when you do have some of those younger coaches, you know, a little older than me, to be honest with you, you kind of feel like, you know, it's hard. It's not hard to listen to them, but it is a little different because, you know, they were in college like 10 plus years ago. So it's a little weird. You know, obviously the Seattle Seahawks are headed to the Super Bowl. Their head coach is 6 years older than I am, which is nuts. I mean, it's young. But some of these coaches, they just know how to do it. I mean, it's just incredible. They just do. I mean, it's incredible. But like a guy like Cignetti, it took him years, right? It took him years to basically build a resume, get this opportunity, and he did it. So, but I think that coaches just know better than us. I think Elko's got a very good eye for coaching talent. I think that having Trev Alberts as well, he's been around the block. Obviously, a former first-round pick after having a great career with Nebraska. So, look, these guys are all kind of have that same coach mentality when they're judging these hires. So, it truly is wait and see. With Perry, I think he'll be fine. You're not going to notice a lot there because those guys are doing a lot of things under wraps. You're going to see further development with, I guarantee, guys like Terry Bussey, and especially Ashton Bethel-Roman, like I said, is going to be a huge advantage to have. Just a guy that brings some size, but also you can move him around. But I just think that's an easy one for anybody who's kind of judging this. I think the biggest wait and see is Joey Lynch, but I think I kind of laid it out. If you can agree with me or not, it doesn't really matter. But I just think that people, because of the way the season ended, they're kind of freaking out just to freak out because they want, even though you finished 11-2 and went to the playoff and hosted a playoff game and then lost to the team that was a couple bad plays away from winning a title, I wouldn't be too upset about that, but I get it. But making external hires that could be disastrous, it's not worth it. And I think Mike Elko knows that because he already trusts the staff he has in place because they got him there with a team that he might think was a little less talented than what he has coming in. I'm going to be honest with you. I guarantee we're going to hear some of that because there are certain spots, we're going to get into the spring battles, where he thinks he's taking a huge jump in terms of talent. And that's going to be fun to talk about because I know a lot of people think, well, you lost all these guys to the draft. They were leaving anyways. So we can't really judge that and go like, oh, man, they lost so much. You knew you were losing them. You had them. A guy like Scooby Williams, for example, who is playing at the Senior Bowl this week. Good for him. I'm very proud of him because he dealt with a lot of injuries. But you didn't get him throughout the entire year. So there's a lot of players that you didn't have available. But now you feel like if you go through a healthy spring, you've got a loaded roster, a lot of unknowns. But having a good coaching staff in place is going to help that and help them move forward. And that's why I think consensus-wise they're ranked number 8 overall. So it's good for the national media. Because I think they do know about, for the first time I'm saying that, they know that this staff, I guarantee the smart ones who do their homework, don't just look at helmets and rank based on that. They've seen the staff they have. Maybe they know those names and are probably thinking, it's not that bad. Pretty good staff, pretty good team.
You guys heard it here first. Cameron is giving flowers to national media for the first time ever on the show.
In my entire life.
And in his entire life. Yeah. So
before
we get...
We can.
Before we move on, I think it's important. We do need to talk about our sponsor today, Underdog. Yeah. I think Underdog right now has some amazing lines that you guys can go see already on the Super Bowl coming up just here in a week and a half. So I'm for one excited. I've been one to dabble a couple of times when it comes to the NFC and AFC championship, at least this past one for sure. But Underdog is a place where you can go play with real money and just place higher or lower on player projections and maybe win some extra cash. So right now they have the NFL over-unders right now for player lines. I'm taking Kenneth Walker over 73.5 rushing yards since Zach Charbonnet is out for the year. I think Seattle has looked really, really well over the past week or two, and they look to keep doing that on a roll. But if you guys are wanting to be a part of this as well, go ahead and use our code on Underdog. It is VOCFB Aggies. VOCFB Aggies. If you play $5 with that code, you actually get $50 credited to your account in bonus. So definitely go on there, use our code, and help us out, help Underdog out, and have some fun.
Yeah, I think the Seahawks are going to win by 20. That's just my opinion. I think it's going to be destruction. But anyways, if you have a gambling problem, you can always call 1-800-GAMBLER. So yeah, I think we can move on and kind of finish the show. We'll talk a little basketball after. I do want to get to that. But you and I both kind of ranked our top 12 teams early in the offseason, which again, it's hard to do, but it's really based on the transfer additions. The portal is really slowly but surely finishing out, and there's some late additions coming. I think Texas just got an interior O-lineman, but they're seeing if he can actually play going into next year. But really, just there's just little bits of information coming out. But A&M, we believe, are finished adding right now, unless something. I mean, really, the biggest news with A&M right now, outside of, I guess, in football terms, is who they're going to hire as the new cornerbacks coach, which our buddy Jackson Callaway put out a good update, basically saying maybe this week, we'll see.
Wait and see.
Yeah, weather last weekend just kind of ruined another junior day hosting opportunity, and they thought they were going to have a name in place. But either way, when that does happen, we'll talk about it on here. But so I'll start out with mine. And we'll just go through this quickly.
Yeah, who do you have at number 12?
Yeah, so we'll start with that. I'm going to go with LSU. And I think what's interesting about them, obviously Lane Kiffin, I can't. Sometimes Lane Kiffin.
Go through it with a straight face, can you?
Yeah, I can't. Because he's being dubbed Portal King, and look, just call him Money King. Look, they got a lot of money. It's LSU. They're getting who they want. He's getting a lot of guys who were the top ranked players of the position. He's got the quarterback. He's got the O-line for the most part. Lost a lot of guys, including Tyree Adams and Cohen Eccles to Texas A&M. But there's a lot of holes defensively. There's a lot of questions in terms of what kind of team they're going to be. Are they going to be a replica of Ole Miss? Are they going to be, is he going to be the primary play caller, or is he going to be more of a head coach? I mean, that's the thing. So I'll tell you, I'm just not, and I'm kind of, this is the joy of being a sports writer when you do this. But overall, I think Sam Leavitt is going to be a consistent player for them. I just don't know how him coming in for a first-year coach at a new program where they're just going to kind of getting used to the Lane Kiffin effect. We have to remember that coaching at Ole Miss is way different than coaching at LSU. It's smaller. There's a lot. I mean, really, you could win 9 games and they're going to be happy with that season. You win 9 games at LSU, they're going to want to fire you after 1 year. It's going to be very fascinating how good they are to start. I put them at 12 because I do think that they have enough talent, that has enough experience, similar to A&M in that way. The quarterback, honestly, quarterback and O-line is going to determine your season. O-line has been good and really, really bad for LSU over the past 3 seasons when they had 2 bookend NFL starters, and then they had a lot of questions due to injuries. And obviously when you lose Tyree Adams and Cohen Eccles, who started at left tackle and left guard for you last year, there's going to be new faces in there. I get A&M's dealing with the same problem. But I think because I can never pronounce his last name, adding Princely.
Umenmielen.
Yeah. Could end up being a stud pass rusher for them. There's familiarity there, obviously. Look, we do this every year with some of these teams when they win the portal. Lane Kiffin has been winning the portal for a while. And to be honest, they were pretty disappointing. It's kind of hilarious that Ole Miss made it all the way. It was literally a couple plays away from making the national championship after Pete Golding took over, who was kind of heralded as like kind of a joke to some people, which I kind of love that he did that. and got back on track and hopefully will be a successful head coach. But I just don't know how it's going to work out. Do I think that it's a good marriage because of the personality? You betcha. I think it's in a perfect spot with LSU because I don't think they care about anything. They just want to win. They don't care about the culture that much in that way. They just want wins. I think even media people will tell you that's all they care about. So I put them at 12 because they could end up being really, really good, or they could be 8-4, 9-3 team.
That is true. There's a lot of question marks when it comes to it. So,
and to be personally honest, we're at this time of the season where, like, you and I, it's all basketball. We'll get into these teams and really look at the structure of them. Like I've looked at a lot of these teams, look at what they have coming back, look at the additions, and that's how I'm kind of putting this. So even I didn't throw a lot of names out because I personally think LSU is going to be dictated by how good Sam Levitt is and how much blocking he gets up front.
Yeah, I also have LSU, but I also have USC kind of tied right in there. I think both of them, depending on the portal acquisitions they got. I mean, USC is coming off 2 major wide receivers. I mean, Mekhi Lemon is going to be a first-round pick, but they're also losing Jacoby Lane as well. But they do retain Jaden Mayavis, who is a very good quarterback for them. So with all the stuff that you said about LSU, I agree with. I just think that the talent that they did bring in could mesh well. And that's why I have them tied, is because I whittled it down from a top 25 to a top 12. I had to cut teams. I just couldn't decide between LSU and USC. So that's where I have them both in there. So who do you have at 11?
Let's see. So I'm with Ole Miss. I mean, that's a wait and see moment right now. So we did hear, so Trinidad Chambliss, I think we did hear that he's likely to come back, I would think.
I believe so.
It's on a good track. Again, kind of a wild card team. I think they've got a veteran team. I think obviously having a guy like Kyron Lacey in the backfield, having a pretty good, they are losing some guys at wide receiver. I think the structure overall, Trinidad, if he does end up playing, looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the country, probably the best quarterback in the SEC right now. I think a lot of people believe that just because of how he performed in the playoff in the toughest environments against some of the better defenses. You would think that if he does get that waiver and does get one more season, he is probably going to be the top Heisman contender. Again, if they can block for him, he is more of a dual threat guy, kind of like Marcel Reed. But having that running back, QB running back dynamic is as good as it gets.
Yeah, 100%. Trinidad Chambliss definitely took over by storm. I actually don't have Ole Miss in my top 12. They were just outside. I just think that they do lose a lot of talent with guys like Caden Lee, who goes over to Missouri. Definitely there are some questions under a new head coach, even with the success that they had with Pete Golding in the playoffs. They did lose some talent to LSU as well in the portal, whether you want to say that was tampering or not. But I get all the points you're making, and I can't disagree with them because it is way too early. I have Oklahoma at 11. And the reason for that is because the reason they are actually in my top 12 is that they do return a caliber of quarterback that can propel them to wins. John Mateer is that kind of quarterback where we saw the tape coming out of Washington State before he transferred, coming in with an offense coordinator who he was super familiar with. Even though he got injured, we saw some pluses. I just think that the defense under Brent Venables is what's really going to propel them a lot more. So can they take that jump again or stay around the same? I definitely think they can. So that's why I have them right now. I'm giving them benefit of the doubt as we head into 2026.
All right, so we're going number 10.
Yeah.
So mine was Miami. They're going to be interesting. Obviously, we heard Darian Mensah did get these. I think he's settled with Duke. Whatever that financial mess was. He is projected to be their starting quarterback going into next season. That's a huge get. Obviously, I do think he's a better overall player than Carson Beck. They also added Damon Wilson, one of the top edge rushers in the portal from Missouri. Just plays with a high motor. I mean, he could end up being a potential first-round pick after a very good season with them. They're losing, obviously, Ruben Bain, the other defensive tackle. I'm get a lot of my
Hakeem
names.
Mesidor.
Thank you. Who hope the Dallas Cowboys can draft. Personally, again, when you lose a lot of that veteran talent, kind of like the Aggies are, it looks bad on paper. But if you have replacements, if you have transfer replacements, if you have guys you feel are just going to be nice, just get in there, challenge some of the other guys, earn your spot. Getting a guy like Wilson is huge for them because they just need a consistent pass rusher, because I do believe the offense overall is going to be clicking. I think Menza can be that missing piece for them. And I think Cristobal, to be honest with you, as much as we laugh when, they say the U is back and they're not back yet. I mean, I think it's always hilarious, but we'll see. But I
made it to the national championship. There was
it's impressive. It's impressive.
No, the U is back. I mean, they're
technically back. I just think when they say back,
they new Miami team.
Yes, I think Cristobal has proven finally that he is a good head coach. Like, he can lead a team, he can recruit in the transfer portal age. Obviously, getting Wentz was a big deal because you have to get star signal callers to continue winning. So overall, I would put them top 10.
I like the pick. Yeah. I like the pick. I have Miami a little higher than that, and we'll get to it. But I think there's a team that by the end of 2026 or by the start of 2026, we're going to be like, well, every single year they're just sneaking around this spot, and that is BYU. I think that Kalani Sitake, the head coach of BYU, is one of the best coaches in the entire sport, because there's no way a head coach can take a team that is consistently churning out, just sleeper draft picks where Puka Nacua is a 5th-round pick, where all these kids are just buying in together and consistently winning 9+ games a year now, ever since I think like Zach Wilson was there. So Kalani Sitake is playing at his alma mater, and even though he did flirt with Penn State a little bit, I think that when you are able to take a team of guys who are not highly heralded as recruits, I mean, we've seen them land some top-tier recruits, just recently Ryder Lyons in this class, but now, or in years past, they're taking kids. I mean, Bear Bachmeier, nobody knew this kid before, a year and a half ago, with all the controversy surrounding their previous starting quarterback. So it was very impressive for me to see what they did this past year, and they don't lose a lot of that talent. They backfilled linebacker very well in the portal, and I think that they are going to be one of the teams that are going to be sneaky good yet again this year.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, look, it's always the Big 12 because just Texas Tech dominated. They're just going to really point out Texas Tech, maybe Houston in the back end. But no, BYU's proven they're going to keep competing, and they look good. So yeah, number 9 is pretty funny to me. I did pick Oklahoma, and I think I'm just saying that because I know everybody wants to dog on them and John Mateer sucks and all that kind of. Look, John Mateer's now in the same criticism zone as Marcel Reed, which is kind of hilarious to me. Texas fans love to throw a lot of dirt on both those guys and think, oh, it's gonna be great. We get to face them next year. John Mateer was injured throughout the year. He's beat to crap. Look, do I think he can actually be a good, consistent passer? I do. Do I think they have enough talent on offense to get it done if he's healthy and if he takes another step similar to Marcel Reed? I do. Do I think that Brent Venables is a good head coach? I do. And I think he's an excellent defensive coordinator. And I think that he's already shown that he can have one of the best defenses in the SEC and in the country and keep them in every game. The only reason they really got to the playoff was defense. And that was impressive to do because in today's age, that's kind of unheard of, to be honest, that you're riding your defense all the way to the playoff because most of the time you have to be able to score. So this really does fall on John Mateer. But I do think, look, I like the kid. I think he's very passionate. I think he's going to put the work in this summer, get healthy, prevent, off-season injuries and stuff like that. And I could see them getting back to the CFB.
Definitely solid reasoning. I think you and I are on the same page with John Mateer being their starting QB this next season. So I have Texas Tech at number 9. This is a team where the way that they went about the portal this past season was very impressive to me. I think that defensively, that defensive line that they got, I mean, they took a transferred defensive lineman from UCF. They took David Bailey late. They took Romello Height from Georgia Tech very early. They were very, very efficient when it came to, we need this guy to be the perfect fit along our defense. And I think that there were definitely a couple of questions where it was like, hey, could this team take the Lane Kiffin approach where you're just transferring these guys in? And they did it very, very well. All of these guys bought in immediately under the Texas Tech umbrella. So I'm really impressed with the way that they've gone about this past transfer portal cycle as well. They bring in Brennan Sorsby, who is a proven talent at quarterback, all things considered, with a price tag along trailing behind him. But I do think that they have made a case for being the top team in the Big 12, in my opinion.
Yeah, I actually had them in under 6, so we don't need to discuss that. I think the same. Yeah, I think it's really the same reasons. Look, I think that they're always going to have a very good defense, and they're going to wreck most Big 12 teams. It's just going to be how it is. Their schedule is very light. It's actually kind of hilarious how light it is. I could easily see them getting back into the cultural playoff. It just depends. Will they get a higher seed compared to someone like A&M? Maybe not. Maybe they are going to change their ways in terms of who really deserves it more based on the schedule. A&M certainly has a way tougher schedule, especially when SEC play starts. So we'll see. But I think Brennan Sorsby has already proven he's a very good passer. I think he's a big upgrade to whatever they had last year. We saw that in the playoff. It was very embarrassing. Oregon, who got their butts beat by Indiana, basically dominated Tech. I mean, it was like 26-0 or something like that. It was just crazy. So they got a lot to fix, but Joey McGuire's already shown he can recruit through the portal, and obviously landing a quarterback that they feel can take the next step with.
So we have the same number 8, and that's
Texas.
We've talked about it before the show, where we kind of agree with the national media on where A&M is going into this next season with the people they've portaled in, backfilled along the defensive line and offensive skill positions, namely the tight end and wide receiver. But a big question is the offensive line. So where does that head in for them into next season? We don't know yet. We're going to see in spring ball, but we saw the baseline for what A&M did this past season, and projecting it forward, A&M is definitely in a good spot going into this next season. So I think number 7 is really where it gets tricky. And I think we have pretty much the same top 5 teams. So they're kind of all jumbled about, but 7 is really, I think, where it comes to weirdness for us.
Yeah, I have Oregon. And that's mainly really, I don't even know if Oregon would have been in my top 12 if it wasn't for Dante Moore coming back. Look, they have a lot to answer. Oregon has not impressed in the playoff for the last 2 to 3 years. They always have excellent regular seasons. They're always one of the better offenses. Every time, it's kind of funny. It always happens every year where, the SEC teams, the bigger brands almost, and I wouldn't, Oregon is a bigger brand, but they're still considered smaller compared to some of the SEC and Big 12 and Big 10, other Big 10 teams. But they always say, man, look at Oregon. They're just beating the tires off everybody. And then they get to the playoff and people are like, okay, let's see what Oregon can do. And the last 2 years, Ohio State destroyed them. Indiana just bullied them. I mean, physicality has not been a problem for them, which is kind of interesting because they were very physical against Texas Tech, but something just did not click against Indiana. We get it. Indiana was that good, but Indiana did play a very competitive game against Miami in the national championship game, or it could have gone either way. So maybe Oregon does have a lot to fix. It is going to be interesting, but I will say getting Cody Parrish. Thank you. I don't want to screw his name up, but yeah, it's one of the best defensive prospects the portal had to offer. He's going to add a lot to their secondary. Very versatile. I would say probably a first-round pick in the 27 draft at this point. And so it's not, Oregon doesn't slow down getting this type of talent. It's just how it's going to translate and how much better Dante Moore is going to be next year, right? Because we saw him play very well this year. So what does he have to do to help Oregon get past the second round of the playoffs? Is that's exactly. Really the question. Yeah.
I have them one spot higher at number 6, but the one I picked at number 7, I'm higher on them than you are. I think Miami, I'm projecting them to land Darian Mensah and Cooper Barcade out of the portal from Duke. I think that Miami has kind of proven that they are now at the top of the ACC, at least from this year's perspective. So what they've done in backfilling talent with the portal, just consistently building a culture at Miami, has been very impressive. And Mario Cristobal has been very, very adamant that this is not the U bringing the U back, but this is the new University of Miami being able to progress. So I think I'm higher on them going into this next season than you are, but could they drop 9-3 again? I don't know. I don't think so, but I think when we head into these top 6 teams, what I want us to do is they're pretty much all the same 6 teams. So if you want, you can kind of smush them all together.
So I think the one we should talk about, which obviously received the most discussion, being left out of the transfer portal. We'll talk about we will talk about the Texas Longhorns. But Notre Dame, I had at number 5. And look, they're a team that I think probably, if they did go to the playoffs this year, could have potentially made it to the national championship game. I think the way they were playing, the physical run game, obviously losing Jeremiah Love to the NFL draft, but getting CJ Carr back at quarterback, getting Quincy Porter, who I think is one of the better wide receivers that was in the portal. They were very slow in their portal class, and then it really just kind of sped up late, and they actually secured a top 10 class. So they're well assembled. Marcus Freeman he's obviously coming back, denied a lot of NFL interest. I know there were some teams, including the Giants, previously before they hired Harbaugh, that were interested. He's had a lot of success there. Their offseason protest, I guess you call it, was kind of weird and dumb, but look, they are Notre Dame. They're going to earn the respect. They already have this clause now that they finish top 12 next season. They're going to make the playoffs. So there you go. I mean, all you have to do is win and beat all those easy teams on your schedule, and you'll be back in the CFP and have a chance to contend for a title. But getting CJ Carr back was huge. Obviously, this is a big thing. Randy Trujillo in our comments actually basically said that all the top 12 have their starting quarterbacks back. Now, they have new quarterbacks, but still, they do – the quarterback is that important to your success. It just is now. And if you have enough guys to throw the ball to and have a healthy running game and a defense that isn't allowed a ton of explosive plays, you're going to end up probably making the CFP.
Yeah, I have them higher, but I think I'll just go into my top 5 now. I think you can kind of smush them into wherever you want them to be in a top 5 because it's so early now.
So
I actually have Notre Dame number 2.
Okay.
I have them as the second best team in college football heading into this next season, at least from my perspective now. I think Ohio State has earned now with the returning talent on offense and Ryan Day as a coach overall that they have the talent to kind of compete with all the other teams right now.
Mm-hmm.
And with Texas, it's not a matter of depth, but it's a lot of star power. Arch Manning, Cam Coleman, Hollywood Smothers, and Rayleigh Brown are all going to be offensive playmakers for them. And I have to include Indiana and Georgia in there just because the level of coaching that both Kirby Smart and Kurt Cignetti have done at both of those institutions, I cannot knowingly leave them out of a top 5 as of right now with what they've shown me and their teams have shown me on the field so far. I mean, Indiana just won the dang championship, for crying out loud. I've been able to process that now where Indiana won the national championship with Kurt Cignetti at the helm. That is super impressive. And they have portaled very well, bringing in Josh Hoover from TCU, who's a proven, very high floor kind of quarterback. They bring in Nick Marsh from Michigan State, who I'm super high on as a big body wide receiver. And they just are able to get and find these guys who are on their 3rd and 4th year in college football and have proven production. And I just am very, very high on what they can do going forward now. So
Yeah. So my remaining four were Texas at 4, Georgia at 3, Indiana at 2, and Ohio State at 1. And pretty much you cleared it up there. Ohio State, because you do get Julian Sane, Jeremiah Smith, and Bo Jackson back, that team's going to be insane. You are losing some defensive talent to the draft. I guess maybe a couple of linemen, but look, they've proven once over and over again they're going to win at least 11 games probably next year. They're going to make it back to the CFB. And they're going to be in contention for a championship. The only team that really beat them, were Indiana at the end of the year, who won the national championship, and Miami, who was the runner-up for the national championship. So they're that good. I think Texas is interesting because they do have a ton of star power now. Cam Coleman obviously kind of fixes their size issue similar to A&M. Kind of 1A, 1B with them getting Isaiah Horton, but Cam Coleman is that next level talent. Obviously, Arch Manning showed at the end of the year. Credit to him. He ran all over A&M and he ran all over Michigan when he was hurt. So, I mean, let's be honest. We'll see this kid healthy throughout the year. And if they can block, that's the biggest thing. They have a lot of tackles, but the guard situation still, I don't think is that great. And I think they could have some interior problems, which we already saw. Arch Manning did have problems with pressure coming up his face, up into him in the pocket. But he's an older quarterback. Look, we cover A&M, so we're not rooting for Texas, obviously, but you do want to see Arch Manning take that next step and have this and really to see A&M and Texas on the same level next season, to where that clash at the end of the year really means something.
Yeah,
we all love that. That's the thing. I don't want either team to fail. I even saw today when Caden McCoy got hurt, A&M's pitcher, saw a lot of Texas media guys said, this sucks. Like, we don't want these guys hurt, because we want both these teams to be good and these to matter. So they're going to be an interesting team. If they can fix that O-line, Texas, I think, is going to be back in the CFP. I think we're pretty set on that, but we've got a couple minutes here left, about 5 minutes. So I think we cleared that up pretty well. We're going to talk about this stuff for the next 2-3 months. I mean, so it's going to be fun when the portal officially is done. And
do you want to wrap up tonight with some positional battles we're kind of looking at towards?
Yeah, we can do that. It's going to be interesting, and I can't wait to actually get into the nitty gritty of this because when we have talked about these transfer additions, I think you and I both are focused on the offensive and defensive lines and what those are going to look like. Mm-hmm. I think the edge position right now is going to be fascinating to me because you have Antosaka coming in who, dripping wet is 265, 260. He still looks thin. He looks like an NFL pass rusher right now based on when he's at his, best weight combination. It's the frame he wants to play with. The stats overall weren't great at Northwestern. Again, he's playing in a kind of a lower level football, in my opinion, and just didn't get the opportunities he's probably going to get here at A&M. But obviously Marco Jones coming in to his second full season after playing a rotational role last year. That battle is going to be fascinating. And I think that he's going to try to get all three, including Ryan Henderson, on the field, try to kind of figure out how he can fit them in there, move them around. That jack position is going to be fascinating. Who takes over there? But who's going to be the definite replacement for Cassius Howell, I think, is the question. We think it's Marco Jones. I think it's Marco Jones right now. I think Antosaka is going to be used not like Deion Hayes, probably more elevated, but I think he's going to be more of your pure pass rusher, where Marco's been in the program now for a full season, and I think that he's already on his way to becoming a star for them. And I think that adding a guy like that in there obviously just gives you insurance. But I'm really high on Marco Jones right now.
Yeah, I think that's where my thought process turns to as well, as the defensive line, because I think we are going to get a lot of TJ Searcy this year on that other side because he's already been here a season. And I think that the staff are going to have this, not necessarily a positional battle, maybe, but Marco Jones may be that every down kind of edge rusher, while Antosaka is going to be that outside linebacker edge rusher that maybe the NFL is going to use Cassius Howell as a designated pass rusher because of Cassius Howell's size and everything. But Antosaka, if he's able to build up the frame, I don't see a problem with him coming in and kind of interchanging wherever they want him to be. So I think I'm as high on Marco Jones as you are. I know the A&M staff had him as their number one defensive end in the 2025 cycle. So now going into this season, can he take another step and fill in some shoes that were left by Cassius Howell being one of the premier pass rushers in college football? So I think
he has to follow the same track as Howell did this summer. You got to add healthy muscle to your frame, work with Tommy Moffitt all summer. You're going to be underrated. I guarantee a lot of national media is going to kind of do the same thing they did to Cassius Howell. He's going to run under the radar. They're going to look at Anto Saka more because we've already seen some of these draft guys say, wow, like watch out for this guy. But they're really forgetting about Marco Jones. I mean, Jackson was as high on him last week as we are, knowing that he's already made an impact last year as a rotational guy who didn't see the field that much, but it was hard to keep him off the field for Mike Elko. And he already said that in most games. Like, look, we didn't have Cassius Howell here. He'd probably be the starter, to be honest with you. It's just because we had Howell. And Howell at the next level, I think a 3-4 defense, kind of like Nick Herbig. I could see how they used him in the Steelers. That's what I kind of think, because that arm length thing, he's probably going to measure out at 30 inches. You can really use those guys and move them around at outside linebacker, and they can be a terror. I mean, they're just kind of, especially when you play with that type of energy, that high motor and that bend. Yeah, it's going to be fun because
there's one position battle on offense that I want to end on tonight. And we talked a lot about the offensive line already. It's a question mark going into next season because they portal in, 4 guys to be in this offensive line room. And we've already said where we project Tyree Adams and Will Conformity to be on the left tackle and right tackle. I think Tyree Adams might be that left tackle that they're wanting, Will Conform being on the right side. But what I am watching is the left guard spot. I think that we see them portal in Cohen Eccles, who has familiarity with a program at one point under a different regime. But I think that during the spring, someone who has quietly come up in conversations I've already had is Blake Ivy. Mm-hmm. And Blake Ivy and Cohen Eccles could have this. I mean, they were the same same high school class. They're similar sizes. I think that when they originally recruited Ivy, it was more to be an offensive tackle, but he's kind of grown into the spot of an offensive lineman. So you can kind of play him anywhere pretty much but center as of right now. So can Blake Ivy kind of give Cohen Eccles a run for his money in spring because he's already been in the same program a while under Adam Cushing? That's a big question for me. I know that they were very high on Cohen Eccles at the start of the cycle when he entered. So I'm very that's a big question mark for me inside the question mark that already is the offensive line.
Yeah, because I do think that Ashton Funk is probably going to serve as the backup center to Mark Naboo right now. That's just where I think he just fits perfectly. And I think the coaching staff believes that as well. I think one of the reasons Adam Cushing coming back was so important is because he knows these guys better than anybody. He recruited all of them. He understands that he's got this new group now in there. He's got to kind of figure out where he wants to slot them. Cohen Eccles has the experience starting a left guard, but at the same time, that right guard spot, Trovon Boz, another name that you do believe could just be a plug-and-play type of guy. But at the same time, they need this O-line to work. They need them to be better in some areas, but they need them to be better run blockers. But they need to be at least adequate to above adequate pass protectors because Marshall Reed and most quarterbacks in the country need a healthy pass protection. And if you don't have that and a pocket that, we know he can move around, and he's got to get better at that, not kind of turning around and letting the pass rush, kind of chase after him. But at the same time, if he has enough time to pass, this offense is going to be back on track. So I'm very fascinated of kind of how they identify where these guys fit perfectly because they've got the depth. It's just who's the starting level guy, who's the rotational guy. And to be honest, we all think it's going to be the guys who started last year for other teams. But we've seen in years past that sometimes it's not. Sometimes the guys who's been in this program and like a Blake Ivy who's just been developing, he was never a name we thought was going to enter the portal because he does feel I could win one of these starting jobs next season. That's what was interesting to me when guys were entering the portal. We saw the guys leaving made perfect sense. There wasn't a guy out there, I'm going to be honest even now, that I was Javante Newman, right?
Jonte Newman.
Jonte Newman, not a shock. And the fact that he signed with Texas, I know it's rivalry, haha, but who knows if he's going to get on the field there. Nothing against him, but
we're going to have a day here where we just do a segment where I'm going to give you a player's name and you have to spell it and say it.
Yeah, that's not going to be fun. So,
but it would.
What's even worse is I'm a writer and I have Grammarly and spell check, so I never get those right.
Hey, but, I'm just saying we take a 15-minute segment and we just go through names.
Make me look stupid. Yes, okay. Anyways, it's gonna be fun to, again, like I said, dissect these position groups going forward. But that's it for us today. We'll be back next Tuesday. We didn't talk about a lot of basketball today, but we're gonna get into that. They do play Georgia on Saturday afternoon. We're starting a very, very tough slate of games. I think the next 5 are really going to define A&M going forward. It's going to be a fun ride. It already has been.
Tune in, guys.
Yeah, watch it. It's going to be on, believe, SEC Network.
SEC Network.
I think a lot of people are maybe a little bit confused because there wasn't a game this week, but everybody gets a mini bye. And it is kind of weird. I thought there was going to be a game yesterday. I was like, no, there's not. You just get used to it. You get used to the schedule. But as always, you can follow me at Cameron Odyssey. You can follow Cannon at Torres Cannon. You can follow all my work at Aggies Wire, part of USA Today Sports. And Cannon, as always, tell them where everybody can read your recruiting updates and everything there.
Yeah, you can find me over on Patreon at Bell Tower Intel, covering a lot of basketball and football recruiting right now for A&M in 2027. So come on over.
Yeah. It's like I said, it's a weird time. We have a lot to talk about. Football never ends. Hopefully we're going to get some coaching news with the cornerback coach sooner than later. And we will be discussing that. If that does happen this week, we'll be discussing it next Tuesday night. So, you guys, as always, gig 'em, and we'll see you then.